Okay. Sorry, just takes a little bit. Okay, apparently it takes longer than I thought. Sorry guys, sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm gonna try this again. All right, going back to here. Okay, presenting, window, PowerPoint, boom. So on the next clean page of your notebook, please write week 3, day 2. You are going to get the steps on how to build your mug today. Okay, so it's going to kind of look like this, what you're working on today. You're making your slab, you're assembling it, you're putting a bottom on it today. So you're going to make the body of your mug. Do you have headphones? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. There is so much to do today. I really want you to pay close attention. And just as important as paying attention and getting the right steps, it's also important that when you're done for today, you wrap what you've done up really, really well in 2 bags. So it's wrapped up incredibly well for the 4-day weekend. Because if you go through all this work today of making your mug and it dries out for next week, you're going to have to restart it next week. So we're just going to double bag this. We're going to make sure it's really airtight and no air can get in, no holes in the bag, so that all the work that you do today is saved and preserved and ready to go for Monday. Also, please note that 11th and 12th graders who are in hybrid, you're going to be bringing your mugs back to school. You're going to be bringing them here. So you're going to need to wrap them up in some sort of container, ice cream bucket, a shoebox, cushioned with a lot of plastic bags around it so it doesn't get jostled or fall over when you're transporting it. You're going to bring that back whenever you're back hybrid next week, either Tuesday or Wednesday. So keep that in mind. If you're 11th or 12th grade hybrid, you're going to have to pack your work up, not only so it doesn't dry out, but it's so it can be safely transported. Okay. Here are the steps I want you to write down, please. I'm going to talk you through the steps, and then in the demo, I'm going to walk you through the steps. So first thing you need is a 1/2 inch thick chunk of clay. You're going to wedge it, especially if it's really soft. The clay might not have a lot of strength to it. It's really sticky. So maybe wedge it more than you normally would if your clay seems kind of sticky. Then once you've wedged it, you're going to flatten it into a 1/4 inch thick slab. You can either use a rolling pin or you can use the throwing method that I've taught you. I'll also remind you how to use a paper clip to test the thickness of that slab, because to be honest, the 1/4 inch thickness thing can be negotiable, but if it's uneven, that's a really big problem. So we want to make sure that our slab is consistent as we can get it. Next, once you have flattened your slab of clay, you're going to use your plastic cup template. And I was really proud. A lot of, like, the majority of the class did this assignment from yesterday, probably because it was really easy. There's a handful of like 5 or 6 people that haven't done this step yet. So make sure that you do that today, please. So you'll need your plastic cup template, however you ended up cutting it out to make the kind of shape mug that you want. And you're going to use this. You're going to lay it on your slab of clay, and you're going to use a paper clip to trace this plastic cup to cut your clay slab to be the same size. So the clay is going to be cut using your template. And then when you're done cutting it out, set your extra clay aside. Don't crumple it up yet, because you're going to need that extra clay to be able to cut the bottom of your mug. So, so don't crumple it up, don't wedge it, don't put it back in your bag yet. Now, this next step, this is step number 3. I don't, I'm sorry. Yeah. So step number 3, this is where it's going to maybe get a little abstract for you. So if you don't know what I'm saying or don't understand what I'm saying, don't worry about it. You'll understand when I actually show you in the demo, but just write it down so you have this as a reminder. So step number 3 is, once you have your clay slab cut to be the right size, you're going to cut a bevel. And remember, a bevel is a 1/4 inch, not a 1/4 inch, a 45-degree angle cut on one side of your template, and then you're going to cut a matching bevel on the other side of your clay slab. And the two bevels, they're going to kind of look like this, but they'll be spread apart. They're going to look like this, and they're going to be parallel to each other. So you're going to shave off a 45-degree edge on one side and a 45-degree edge on the other side, and I will show you that in the demo, and I promise it will make more sense. Once you have cut those bevels, the reason we're cutting those bevels is because in the next step, you're going to pick up that slab of clay, you're going to wrap it around, and the two edges where your bevels have cut, they're going to fit together seamlessly. It's not going to create a big bulky connection. It's going to create this really uniform, smooth, sleek connection. And so we're going to score and slip those two beveled edges so that they come together in this nice uniform seam. And then once you have scored and slipped and got those two edges together, so your cylinder is going to be wrapped in, your slab is going to be wrapped in a cylinder. You're going to take your plastic card, okay? So the plastic card, which you should have found at home. I did not give one to you. You're going to use that to compress your seams and to really make sure that your pieces have come together not only seamlessly, so we don't see the seam, but we want them to come together strongly. So using this tool, which is really taking the place of a steel scraper that you would have if you were in the classroom, this is going to take the place of that steel scraper, just put a little bend in it and scrape and compress up that side. Then you're going to make your bottom. So you're going to take that clay cylinder that you've made and you're going to set it on that extra slab of clay, the part that you cut away a little bit ago. You're going to set it on that slab and you're going to trace around that clay cylinder to make a bottom. It's either going to be a small bottom if you trace the small side of your cylinder, or it's going to be a bigger bottom if you trace the bottom, the larger side of your cylinder. So you're going to cut that bottom shape out. And then in the steps here, it says cut a bevel on that bottom. I think that you're going to be able to get away with not having to cut a bevel. So all you're going to need to do is take that bottom that you've cut, score and slip around that bottom circle, score and slip around the bottom edge of your cylinder, and then put the two together. And again, use your plastic card to compress and scrape so that the seams come together as strongly and as smoothly as possible. Okay, you can cut a bevel to make sure that that bottom is a really, really crisp, tight fit. But what I've learned as I have been trying this before school and then in first hour is that it works okay to just score and slip it straight on and then use your tool to just put nice sharpness into it. So those are your steps for today, and I want you to definitely make sure you have these in your notes because there's so much that's technical about this process that if you forget something, I want you to be able to go back and look at your notes to be able to be sure that you've hit all the things you need to hit. So I'm going to give you a little bit more time to finish writing this down. You can also snap a picture and finish writing this down at your leisure. All right, I'm going to move on in 3, 2, 1. So for points today, you're going to be snapping a picture of your mug's body, which is really what you've just assembled, the main part of your mug. We're not doing the handle today. We're not doing designs today. The clay is too soft for all those other features. We're not even going to do a lot of precision work or refining or cleaning today because the clay is too soft. So all you're doing is assembling your walls and your bottom to your mug. And now I should point out that if you're doing the hourglass shaped mug, then you'll have the extra step of making a second cylinder and putting it on top. And I'll demonstrate that in my demo so that those of you who want to do an hourglass shape will know that extra step that you'll have to do. So your assignment for today, snap a picture of your assembled mug body. Then you are going to have to make sure that you're really protecting this little mug so it doesn't dry out for next week. So put it on your wooden tray and put it on the tray in such a way that it's going to be really stable. So if yours has a narrow bottom, if that's the kind of mug that you're doing, wider at the top, narrower at the bottom, maybe just store it upside down. That way it'll be more stable as you're lifting it and carrying it around. Make sure it is not distorted when you put it on your tray, because if it is distorted, like if it's kind of squished, and if it gets leather hard in that kind of squished shape, it's going to lock you into a shape that's not a perfect circle. So really take some time to make sure that it's a nice circle. If you're doing the kind of mug that's wider at the top, you can even take your little plastic template and store it inside your clay cup so that the plastic helps keep your clay in a perfect circular shape. But if you're doing an hourglass, that won't work. And if you're doing the wider at the bottom mug, that also won't work. But just make sure it's as close to a circle as you can possibly do. Then wrap the clay cup in 2 plastic bags. We just really want to make sure that this doesn't dry out before we resume next week, next Tuesday. So wrap it up in 2 plastic bags. And then I would strongly recommend that you set a reminder for yourself for this weekend. So this weekend, you're reminded, maybe on Saturday, maybe on Sunday, to just go and take a peek at your mug body, unwrap it, see what stage it's in. If it's still plastic, great. Keep it bagged up in its 2 plastic bags. If it's leather hard, do a little bit of a damp paper towel with it to keep it leather hard for next week. And if it's bone dry by this weekend, that's a problem. Then you're going to have to do a paper towel that's even a little bit more damp and wrap that around your cup and then double bag it again till next week. And we'll do what we can to resuscitate it. But if it's still bone dry next week, you won't be able to add your design. You won't be able to add your handle. You'll have to remake your mug. So just it's worth spending an extra 2 minutes this weekend to double check and make sure things aren't drying out too much. Then just another reminder for my hybrid kids who are here next week, who are 11th and 12th graders, remember to put your mug in some sort of transportable container, a box or a ice cream gallon or Tupperware, old like cruddy Tupperware. Cushion it with a lot of kind of crumpled up plastic bags around it so it doesn't get jostled or tip over, and make sure it's double bagged. And then bring it in on Tuesday if you're B, or Wednesday if you're A day. Okay, so that is important so that you don't have to restart the project when you come next week because you forgot it at home. So you will have to work on it while you're here.
When we come to school in person, like for hybrid,
yep,
in the morning, can we just come bring it straight to you?
What a good idea. Yes. Since your second hour, bring it here before school starts. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
And you'll get a locker here in the room, and so I'll just have you stash it in that locker. Cool. Really good question. What other questions do you have at this point about the process? Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate for you now, and hopefully if you do have a question, but you're just kind of not sure about asking it, hopefully the demo will help alleviate whatever questions you might have. So I'm going to change my position. It's really loud. Can you not do the bag? Thank you. All right. So changing my position. Okay. So I have my clay already portioned out because my clay is really wet. So I wanted to wedge it extra today. You will be cutting a slice of clay that's about 1/2 inch thick. I already have my clay prepped and ready to go. And I'm going to wedge it a little extra because it's still stickier than I would want it to be. That's going to mean my slabs are kind of going to be a little bit more weak. So just be aware of that. If your clay is a little bit sticky, just spend a little extra time wedging it. So I'm going to do the throwing method for making my slab. So I just pre-flattened it a bit. And then I'm going to stretch it and stretch it and stretch it. And I'm trying to throw it always with a different side facing forward. And I'm trying to stretch it till it's 1/4 of an inch thick. And it's a bit of a guessing game whether it's consistent. But remember, here's a trick for knowing if your slab is consistent. If you take your paper clip and stab through the slab and then mark with your fingers on the paper clip where the top of your slab is, that'll tell you how thick your slab is. So if you test it in a few spots, okay, so I can tell it's a little thicker there. So I'm going to try and stretch it that direction just a little bit more. And then my little holes that I stabbed in there, I'm just going to blend those little stabs away. Okay, great. So now I have my template. I have cut my template to be a little bit more on the short side because this is going to turn into a hourglass shape. So I'm going to take and I'm going to lay it down on my slab. Now, one of the things that I'm noticing is that the plastic cup doesn't like to lay 100% flat. Like the clay or the plastic is kind of a little bit sassy and it just wants to curl up on me. So you might want to find a helper at your house and have somebody hold this down for you so that you can put a lot of pressure across that plastic, and then you do the tracing. I am going to try and do this by myself. I'm just trying to hold my fingers so that I've got a lot of pressure kind of universally on that plastic so it stays as flat as possible. That's one of the downsides of using this plastic cup, is it doesn't like to lay flat. So now I'm using my paper clip, my bent open paper clip that's acting like a needle tool, and I'm trying to hold it as straight up and down as possible to cut out my clay slab. Okay, so I peel my plastic away. It did peel up one little corner of my clay, but I'm not gonna sweat that. I just meld that back in. All this extra clay, I'm gonna set that aside for now because I'm gonna need it, or at least I'll need a portion of it to cut my bottom in a little bit, but I'm not gonna worry about that right now. So I'm gonna get my tray handy and I am going to cut my bevel. So I want you guys to watch really closely what I'm doing here. I'm gonna elevate it so it's more at your eye level. So I'm gonna deal with my two short ends. So this end and this end are the ends that get bevels. So I'm gonna hold my paper clip at a 45-degree angle, and I'm gonna shave off one side of my slab at a 45-degree angle. Okay, so can you see that? 45-degree angle, like that. See, it slopes downward like a slide. And now on this other side, I'm also gonna cut a 45-degree angle, but on this side, I cut the angle on the top edge of the slab. On this side, I have to cut the angle on the bottom edge of the slab. So I'm gonna position the tool, I'm gonna hold the paper clip at a 45-degree angle, and I'm gonna shave the bottom edge of the slab. So now when I pick it up, here's my little 45-degree cut. Okay, can you see that? Hold it up from kind of side view. So that's what I mean about the cuts being parallel. This cut goes this way, and this cut goes this way. This is awkward to demonstrate. So that's what I mean by a bevel. I'm going to hold that up one more time just so you can see it close up. Here's bevel on the top side. Here's bevel on the bottom side. And now here's why that is necessary and why it's so slick. When I start to wrap this around and my edges come together, those bevels are gonna line up and they're gonna fit together like a hand in a glove. It's just gonna be such a great seamless fit. And so that's why we cut those bevels. So I'm not gonna put them together quite yet because I do need to score and slip. So I'm gonna take my fork, dip it in my slip. I'm gonna score up the length of one edge, up the length of the other edge. And then my little bevels are gonna come together real nicely. So there's no bulky connection where the slab overlaps the other one. It's a real seamless connection. Then I need my plastic card. Remember, I told you to find an old ID card or an old gift card that didn't have any value left on it. So I'm just gonna use that to scrape up that seam. And then on the inside, I'm gonna flip this over so I can see it a little bit better now. I don't think I can fit my card on the inside, so I'm gonna use my big popsicle stick. And I'm gonna meld the inside with my popsicle stick. So that seam is compressed and strong. So now if I was gonna make the kind of mug that was wider at the top, I would trace this bottom to make my base for my next step. If I was gonna make a cup that's more like a tankard, that's wider at the bottom, I would trace this wider side. So I'm gonna bring my extra clay back into the picture. And this is going to become the bottom of an hourglass for me. So that means I need to trace the bottom of my cylinder shape. So I'm gonna place it on top of my extra clay. I'm gonna take my paper clip and I'm just gonna trace it really lightly. I'm not gonna actually do any cutting yet. Okay, so I just traced it real lightly. And now that the cylinder is out of the way, now I can actually cut it. And you can cut it straight up and down. I had mentioned that one way that you can cut this bottom is you can cut it to have a bevel. So it also fits really seamlessly on the bottom of your mug. I'm going to say you don't have to do that. But if you wanted to, okay, now this extra clay, now this can go into your bevel. Okay, so this, if I wanted to cut a bevel, I could cut at a 45-degree angle all the way around this edge, but that's kind of tricky to do. So that's why I'm suggesting that we not do that, because I think you're going to be able to create the same nice tight fit just by scoring and slipping it directly on. So I'm going to score and slip where the cylinder is going to touch the base, score and slip heavily, and then I'm going to score and slip that edge, kind of the little bit on the top of this base, a little bit on the side of the base. So it's kind of where the bevel would be. So scored and slipped, and now I'm going to carefully set the wider side of my cylinder on that base, just kind of brushing away the little extra slip that's on there. And then I'm going to use my plastic card again. I'm going to put a little bend in it, and I'm going to scrape the base of my mug onto the body of my mug. So this is going to kind of take the place and give you the nice crisp accuracy of them coming together seamlessly instead of cutting a bevel down there. This is just way easier to do. So I'm just trying to really compress and strengthen them. The inside, it's really hard to get to because the opening of my mug is kind of narrow. So to meld and smooth the inside, I'm just going to use the paintbrush dipped in water, and I'm just going to do a little bit of gentle melding and smoothing with that paintbrush so that that all looks nice and neat. And then if this was my, I was doing a tankard and I was done constructing, I would snap my picture, I would double bag this, and it would be ready to go. But I'm going to do an hourglass shape. So I've actually already made a second cylinder here, and it's going to be slipped and scored on top of this piece that I just made here. So no bottom on this one, obviously. I'm going to score and slip around the top of the cylinder that I just made. And then I'm going to score and slip the corresponding spot on the other cylinder. So if you're doing an hourglass, the two narrower sides should be what touch. So I'm going to bring those together. I'm going to try to gently do a little bit of smoothing. I'm going to use my plastic card to compress that area. And notice whenever I'm putting some pressure on the outside, I need to provide some equal pressure on the inside. So I'm just keeping my fingers in that area where the card is doing the compression, so I don't end up denting my walls. So one of the things that I hope you remember from working with clay is the first day that you're working with something, it maybe isn't going to look 100% like we want it to look. Like the precision of this hourglass shape can be better, right? Like this can be a little bit more precisely coming out and coming in. But I'm just getting everything together today. The refining, the perfection, all of that is going to come in the following days when things are leather hard. So this is as far as I would go for today. Ooh, although I do need to smooth that interior seam, I want to make sure that that's compressed as well. So I'm just using my popsicle stick to smooth all of that. Make sure all your seams are compressed and smooth, please. Then I would snap a picture, I would double bag this guy, and I would let it chill like that for the weekend, okay? So obviously it is an extra step if you're doing the hourglass shape, but look at this nice sized mug that you get, right? Like I can fit a lot of caffeinated beverage in this mug. So if you want a bigger mug, the hourglass is a good way to go. All right, I am going to stop recording, and I'm going to see what kind of questions you guys have.